This is the Conscious Planet Network with your host, myself, Guyana Sophia. In these episodes, we'll be diving into inspirational stories of change, new technologies, and people really making a difference. There is just so much going on the planet right now that is helping to change humanity, our planet, and the future, and we need to know about it. So be sure to subscribe to the show so as not to miss any episodes. The Conscious Planet Network is an exploration of the evolution that is already in progress, one that you and I are a part of, that's happening on an individual and global level. There are so many people right now who are contributing to changing the tides of our future. Are you ready to be inspired? We're living in a time of great change. With all of these changes that are happening on the planet, we're left in a place where we're questioning how strong our footing feels, and if there's going to be a positive future outcome. Interestingly enough, our future outcome boils down to how each and every one of us relate to our own lives and what our future can look like. For instance, if we narrow our minds to only allowing what TV and the media are telling us, we may be shooting ourselves in the foot. But if we can open our minds to even a 2% chance that we can turn this predicament around on the planet, then we start to increase that percentage by taking steps to change our future. We're going to be talking about this today on the show. I've invited two ladies from the Transition Salt Spring Society, which is a much different group than Transitions House or the secondhand shop on the island. They're here today to help us realize how we can be surrounded by people who are inspired by the future we're creating. But before we get into the show, I would love to talk to you about the big changes that are happening on a more of an individual level. There seems to be an ongoing theme with people who I'm talking with these days. They're pulling back and reconsidering how they're living their lives. Things just aren't working like they used to, or they thought they should. Some people are considering giving up careers, housing, relationships. As a result, some people are feeling like there might be something wrong with them, that they should still be able to do what they were doing, or they fear that somehow they've lost their footing or failed because of not being able to fit into their old lives. If you're relating to this at all, I'd love to invite you to consider that we may be taking an evolutionary leap, which is requiring us to become more authentic with what we're doing right now. This change seems to be a result from outgrowing old skins of what is no longer feeling authentic. If you're feeling like the way you used to do things is getting really uncomfortable now, and feeling out of alignment with who you are, then this might be the situation that you're in. Some people are totally rocking this change. These people are used to pressing their edges and living in the unknown. They're a bit more comfortable when overhauling shifts like this take place. If you're feeling unsure of how to move through these shifts, then you may want to ask yourself what feels complete and done in your life. What are you ready to let go of? What just isn't resonating? And then ask, what is important for you now? That answer may not be crystal clear, and some people seem to be living in the unknown for right now. And that can feel a little bit uncomfortable or scary because it's letting go of what we've known, really. Sometimes it's the better the devil we know than the devil we don't know. But getting real with these questions can really help free your spirit up to living in more of a zestful reality, being turned back on to a loving life. And once acknowledged, then all we need to do is have the courage to make the changes that bring these shifts in our reality, making the hard choices that we need to. Change isn't just happening outside of us, it's happening inside as well. And the more we're aligned with the new truths that are bursting within us, the more we are aligning with the evolutionary shifts that are happening to humanity. It's simple when it's boiled down to it. Sometimes it's hard to see because it's such a personal experience. So with this under our belts, let's see how the Transition Salt Spring Society is helping us to make big leaps into the brighter future we've all been dreaming about. Today I am interviewing two amazing women from Transition Salt Spring Society. The first one is Anne Parkinson, who's the newly elected chair on the board, who is also a registered professional biologist. And also Erin Ann Harper, who is the administrator for Transition Salt Spring Society. She's also a community organizer and a permaculture designer. Welcome, ladies.
Nice to be here.
Yes.
Awesome.
That's great.
So I actually just learned about Transition Salt Spring a couple of weeks ago. You guys have been putting on all these amazing events on the island. And I never really thought about who was behind it until I went to your website. And your society helps with some of the things that you guys put on is the Eco Living Home Tour. You've created or helped to fund electric vehicle stations on the island. There's now car stops on the island because of you guys. And there's solar panels on our high school roof, along with many other things that I probably don't know about. And I love how you are creating space for so many amazing projects to happen on the island to help revolutionize how people are seeing our future, how people are being able to get a part of all the changes that are happening in a really good way. And I just want to thank you. I mean, first of all, thank you for doing this.
Our pleasure.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I heard from somebody that this organization was created because it was, instead of waiting for government to step in and do this kind of proactive environmental work, creating opportunities.
Mm-hmm. I think that as a biologist, we've been watching changes in the way humans impact the environment for many, many decades. And so I do believe that personally, that action is the way to go. Ground up, just roll up your sleeves, decide what needs to be done. Let's do it. So in that way, a lot of people on Salt Spring got together really in 1997 as the Earth Festival Society. And that was the goal, to provide information and education and become more environmentally sustainable. So I think humans have been watching the impact on the environment for a long, long time. So the grassroots that got going actually started several things on Salt Spring. They did the first Earth Day. They worked away at things to do with the energy strategies, emissions baseline report in 2004 and 5. And some of the directors of that society were actually off island and just a community around Salt Spring. So eventually it became more and more Salt Spring centered. And so Transition Salt Spring Society working committee began in 2009 and was actually registered in 2011. And by 2014, it was a BC nonprofit. So there's been a huge amount of work since 1997, but it's been very, very local, very grassroots, very small. And I think now we're reaching a point in the society that we have taken on bigger and bigger projects. And, we're really, as you say, a very broad organization doing a lot of good work. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'd like to add that we are part of a global network. There's, I think, thousands of local groups that are all connected through the Transition Town movement, which was started in England, in Totnes, England. I think it's about 15 years ago. So around, even after Salt Spring was really active, those groups got active with the focus of what's happening with peak oil and what's happening with climate change, and how do we get off carbon, how do we get off oil, and just mostly focus on how to create more resilient communities, in all the ways that we need to do that.
I love that. Mm-hmm. So are you saying that if any of our listeners, maybe if they're from different towns, different places around the world, that they could actually connect up with this organization and
Yeah.
learn and create similar things in their area, being supported by the organization?
Yeah, there's a group in Vancouver. There's Village Vancouver. That's part of the Transition Network. There's Transition Souk. I think there's Transition Cowichan. There's a group that's starting in Nanaimo and Gabriola. And I know there's some all over the world. So if there's not one, I mean, look for one in your community. And if there's not one, we and other groups can help you start one. Find out just sort of what the basic structure is of the organization and what are some of the easier ways to get moving with your community.
That is so great.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll give the links at the end of the show so that people can really get involved. We are seeing that there's a eco home tour, eco living and home tour going on. That you guys it's a event that's happening very soon, and that I love. I've been to. It's you basically get in your own car and you can carpool with people and go around to all these different houses that are on this island in particular, but it would be in a certain community. And then people get to go and see these really inspirational houses that are off-grid living and, I want to say mud huts, but
no. But adobe, hempcrete, different ways of building that reduce your footprint. Tiny houses. We've got, of course, solar. Some
water catchment.
Yeah, lots of water saving
permaculture
techniques.
gardens.
Yep, gardens that are xerophytic require low water.
High insulation, like anything that's energy efficient.
Mm-hmm. We even have, I think, in the ocean, a person has been using a bit of a
Heat
generator. Lots of heat pumps using either even a pond or the ocean. But there is someone who's going to, maybe in or about to go in, using the tide flow to generate with a little bit of a transformer there. So anything that, we have very, very lovely ways to live, but be off-grid and have a very low footprint. It does not mean you completely change the style of living.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, well, it would make sense if it's just power coming in from a different source. You're still getting to use power.
Yeah.
You're not off-grid does not necessarily mean you're powerless.
No, exactly.
It just means that you have a more of an environmental way of receiving power so that you can still have certain things, maybe not all of them all at once if you can't afford it, or because I know that you have to keep buying solar panels until you've got enough to sustain the juice that you use in your house.
But then there's transportation, which is a huge footprint. So, of course, the electric vehicle program that's Transition, it's really a independent group. But what Transition does, if we're going to talk about the groups, Transition provides the structure of a nonprofit. So we provide the board, the paperwork for BC Societies Act, insurance for events, we fundraise, and then we help those groups.
Yeah, we have a treasurer that does accounting. We have insurance so that they can run events and be covered, and just provide a connective structure so that people can feel like they're connected to a larger organization, and they're also supported to do the specific work that they want to do without having to get bogged down in the administration.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
There's the electric vehicle group. There's a Plenty project, which focuses on permaculture. The Rainbow Road Allotment Gardens was initiated by Transition and is still connected to them, so helping them fund water catchment systems. We have also got an education committee that puts on regular monthly events at the library, at least 10 months of the year. We have Climate Action Group that just began with us. They were independent, but due to various circumstances, they are feeling better being underneath, or with, we don't like the word underneath, but with the board of Transition. And there's Green Drinks, which is just a social where we meet once a month and just informally discuss issues. So those are most of them. We're also loosely tied to the Enterprise Co-op, which does micro-lending, and to the Agricultural Alliance, which is building the new root storage shed for people to be able to produce food but store it more properly. And we were the Community Energy Group, which was responsible, as you mentioned earlier, for the solar panels on the high school. They were part of our umbrella, but they have felt that they have enough now to go out on their own. So
Right.
they have established their own board and are doing great work as well.
Fabulous. They're flying on their own now.
They're flying on their own.
But what a happy nest that is, for to helping people, get their eggs together.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the whole idea.
And they're flying, their ability to fly. That's
it's
so
just about
beautiful.
providing the best base for everyone that as they need it, and allowing them to get on with the work, as opposed to, as Erin Ann said, too much administration that it makes it onerous.
Right. That's incredibly supportive to new ideas and new possibilities, bringing in new ways of being, like, to help. I think the main thing that we're doing on this show is opening the doors to what is possible for our future, right? So it's like opening the vision to what's possible, what people are doing already. And I think this organization is a beautiful example of that.
We are hopeful.
Touched. Yeah.
And without hope, what is there, right? So
well, it's baby steps,
and I like
too.
to look back and say that I think we've overcome acid rain. I think we've managed the hole in the ozone. I mean, I'm not Pollyanna, but I do think we have to think positively. And I think declaring climate emergencies like we're doing everywhere now and really mobilizing, I think humans have a huge capacity for change. But the status quo is very resistant to change, obviously. And profit margins run the world, as we know. As Leonard Cohen said, everybody knows. So we do need to manage economics. And actually, one of the things that's very big in transition towns is the spiritual side. Managing people's attitudes is a big part of facilitating change. So, of course...
What does that mean exactly? Is it a cult?
No.
I just have to put that one right on the table.
Exactly. But clearly, if we are violent in our society, we are violent to the environment. And if we are not willing to support each other and we want to live independently without sharing, then we are resisting change. And so I think there's a phrase, permaculture of the mind, as well as permaculture of the land. So I think that considering how we think about change is as important as the changes that we make.
Yeah, I would say that working with the board over the last 2.5 years, it's been really a way for me to maintain my inspiration, working with people who are so dedicated and caring and willing to work with each other and willing to get things done and work through issues and connect with people. And there really is a positive culture within Transition Salt Spring of bringing together people to get things done for each other and for the world. And that's been, I think it's not on our pamphlet, but it's definitely an underlying cultural shift that I feel is really necessary and that I'm experiencing myself through this organization.
So to be an incubator of new projects, we're always open to groups coming in with another great idea and letting them fly with it. We really do support the idea that change is possible, and we just need to set the goals and we need to go there.
That's excellent. So basically, people can get a hold of you if they have great ideas and they want to, check in to see if you maybe could help support that into its fruition.
Yes, exactly.
I love it.
Yeah, we have a network of over 600 people that are on our newsletter list. I send out a newsletter usually twice a month, give or take, depends on how active our island is in terms of events and notices that need to be sent out. But it's really a great resource, I feel, to have that sense that there's all these other people that are with you.
Yeah.
And that you can, people send me information, then I send it out to the network.
And
and also on the website.
Do you guys have like volunteers where people could get involved with this? Like if they want some of this juju that we're experiencing right now, they can get on a volunteer list and like be a part of this organization. Yeah. What we can do is we can just ask people to like, if they want to volunteer, there's like it's sounding like there's a lot of different possibilities and a lot of really dynamic places that they can come. So would they contact you, Erin? If
you go on the website, transitionsaltspring.com, there's a link to contact us.
And that's transition, not transitions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
we've got a great group on the island, the Transition House and the thrift store that has a similar name. We can't really change our name because we're part of a global network, and of course, we don't ask them to change their name. But it does get confusing sometimes.
And we love them. They're fabulous.
Absolutely.
So we just sort it out between us. But yes,
Yeah.
it's Transition Salt Spring Society.
It's all
Yeah.
about transitioning to the new economy and the new resilient culture.
And don't forget, obviously, if you don't have time to come and volunteer, your own life can be your volunteer project. So, drop the plastic, recycle, shop secondhand, reduce your footprint in transportation as much as you can.
Take buses more often.
Or do some ride sharing or
Hitchhike.
Yeah.
If you're in a good community.
Or ride share, or just reduce the amount of consumption and the amount of don't take the ferry and do a blitz at Walmart. Sorry, Walmart. Don't do big shopping. Try and see what you can do in your own life to simply cut your footprint. And enjoy it. Have a good time.
Yeah, there are quite a few resources on our website. There's a few lists of different things and ways to encourage people on how they can reduce their footprint and create a more resilient lifestyle for themselves, as well as connections to other resources.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I completely got into a state of shock while listening to you two, and I kind of became voiceless because, as Anne knows,
we do know each other, you're right.
Anne is my neighbor, and she lives 3 doors down, and she's the person who pulls me out of my head out of my whatever when
funk.
my funk when I get to the point of being like, oh my gosh, what's happening to the planet, and she's a biologist, so I listen to her. Whenever this type of news comes in for me personally, I tend to have a little bit of a shock because it's such a we're just bombarded with so much cultural messaging, saying that there's there's very little hope and what's going on. And so that's part of the reason why I'm doing this show. It's for everyone else, but it's also for me. Because I'm just let's explore this, let's really find that, where people are making a difference. Yeah.
And believe in change. We can. Like I say, some of the other examples, we pulled lead out of gasoline. It took a while, but we did. Did we connect smoking with lung cancer? Well, yeah, but it was hard. And we've made changes. If you look back through history, we are capable of change. Is this a big one? Yeah, it's a big one. So we do have to mobilize, but there's no use, in my opinion, sitting on the sidewalk
moping.
Get up and start doing it.
I listened to an interview with David Suzuki a couple of weeks ago, and he was just furious at the idea that people would give up. He said, if there's 2% chance that we can get ourselves out of this, you focus on the 2%, because otherwise...
Yeah.
There's no, it's just sort of a nihilistic end of the world.
Yeah, you're just to happen.
And then that percentage of possibility just decreases, and you're actually reducing the percentage of our success by your inaction or your inability to just have some hope and connect and do what you can,
Yeah, and look back at how mobilizing people can be. Amazing. I mean, a war is, this is kind of like a war. So I sometimes think what it would be like to be in Paris in World War II with the, army about to march in and take over. And the story I love, people mobilized and saved most of the artifacts from the Louvre because they realized how much that would be pillaged. And the story I love is that they couldn't move David. He was too big, the statue David. So they actually bricked him in.
Oh.
Very cool, thinking outside the box. The alcove that he was in, they just decided, we'll make a wall here. And we did it, and that whole huge, how many deaths, how much trauma to have been facing that as a human. What would you have done? Do you just give up? Do you fight? We're in a war.
I don't think I would have thought to brick in David.
No?
I probably would have had some other things on my mind. But I'm glad
smooth.
Somebody, and this is the beauty of working with people, somebody thought of that.
That's right.
And now we're all benefiting.
I understand there's a whole book about saving the art of the Louvre, and that, it was from your top corporate lawyer to your baker to your everyone just rolled up their sleeves, got in there, and got all that art saved.
Well,
So
and this kind
we're
of
doing that. We're saving.
It's a bit of a funny segue, but when
Yeah.
the what is that church, the Notre Dame, burned down in Paris, it was like within 24 hours they had the money to
Yes.
rebuild it.
Yeah.
And people were saying, well, how about let's get that money and rebuild the forests?
Let's make the analogy.
And rebuild the oceans and like put that money into rebuilding the other temples that we all worship at.
I agree.
For everyone.
So-
like the resources are there. It's just a matter of funneling the energy in a way that people understand that there's an emergency.
I think it's also recognizing the value, because it's based on value. It's like Notre Dame has a lot of sentimentality. It's got a lot of history and story. Our oceans, it's like, yes, and they have that too. And but we, I think maybe because it's being so talked about, and almost because it's so epic. What is actually going on in the oceans is so epic that people can't even look at that.
And you can't see it on the surface, really.
Right.
Like you can see the cathedral burning down. You see the ocean, like, oh, well, maybe it's okay. Well, look, there's still a whale. Oh, there's still seals. There's still.
Yeah, and then you do have the economic agenda, which has always considered the environment as an externality, being the classic economic term, that it is not factored into.
Well, unless you want to take
your
resources
budget.
from it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then yes. So there, we have a lot of fronts to tackle. It's big, but I am forever hopeful that we will be on the right side of the line here.
Well, and the way I find to get hope is just to be with people who are active and encouraging and supporting with a similar vision.
Yeah, and look at what's happened on Salt Spring. We have 200 and how many electric vehicles? What are we at? 250?
220 or
250
lots.
charging stations everywhere. Who would have guessed 10 years ago that would have been possible?
I heard that we were the capital of Canada.
The highest per capita.
Of electric vehicles.
Which makes sense on a little
Yeah.
island. Like, why do you need you don't need a huge vehicle to tootle around, but the mileage is getting they're getting better and better at going. I hear people who say, no, I can go from Salt Spring up to Comox now. I mean, I think there's 300 kilometer range on them starting up, so we're going to do it. We're going to shift. Yeah, so let's just roll up sleeves and get going. Okay?
Yeah, totally.
Right.
Well, I think it's a no-brainer on lots of levels, especially because if anyone out there is feeling like kind of a level of devastation, of like the possibility of our future, then I would totally do this, where it's really taking in being around people who are inspired and inspiring. We have no idea what's possible. Being human, we just have no idea, and
Exactly.
we are more powerful than we realize. One individual, like Gandhi, look at what he did, and we idealize him. We put him up on a pedestal, thinking, oh wow, what a person. But he just had certain ethics and certain codes he lived by, and he always kept an open mind. And so it's just like it's simple. It's like boiling it down to the basics.
Yeah, and I really think you can have I don't mean fun, but I think it can be a positive experience doing change, and is an antidote for, as we said, sitting feeling very depressed and not seeing the change happening. So come and join us. We're having a good time. We're going to make change. We're going to do it.
One last thought on that. When we were talking about World War II, the one thing I noticed about World War II was that there was a lot of camaraderie, and there was a lot of like really tight-knit groups that were working together. And when I realized that, it was back in the 90s, and I was thinking, where is the tight-knit groups? It was actually the question in my mind, is like, how come the bonds aren't so strong right now between, after learning about World War II, and just my grandfather, it's like his buddies were just incredibly tight. You could just imagine, he was a commando. So he came from this huge, actually it was they were working with the Levitt Scouts. They were the Levitt Scouts, and they worked together in like team missions. And so when you build, like with any type of team mission, it's like when you're doing this, it's like we get to find a whole other sense of community, a whole new way of like being together.
Exactly.
So
It could be very, very strong.
Yeah,
Powerful.
very powerful.
Yeah. So let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there has been calls for us to come into that emergency in terms of, they had victory gardens. Well, we could have victory gardens. We could grow a lot more of our own food here if people saw that as a priority.
What is a victory garden?
Victory gardens were the gardens that people were planting in their backyard so that they would have food for themselves, so that the main crops that the nation was producing could go to feed the soldiers, just to try to up the capacity and the resources.
That's a great idea.
Rather than having bylaws that prohibit things like clotheslines and planting on your boulevard.
Yeah.
We need
In
to
cities,
sort of
it's
rethink
crazy.
that, no, that's earth, and if I want to put in a few bits of food in that earth, that's okay. And if I want to have a clothesline, instead of using electric dryer, that's okay. But sometimes we've gotten ourselves into, strictures that are actually working against the idea of a lower footprint.
Yeah.
So we need to examine very carefully everything we do. It doesn't mean we have to, like you say, go backwards into cave living, but we need to look at what we do honestly. And, big one like travel. We love to travel. So what is our footprint? How are we doing this? Can we do it another way and just not have to stop traveling, which I think humans have never stopped traveling. If they had to walk, they would do it. So we move. It's just part of being human. But how can we do that? So big changes coming. Are we going to have an electric plane flying off of Salt Spring? I hear it's coming.
Really?
Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah, our career is changing.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point of looking at this as a really rich time of potential to take the things that we're not satisfied about in the world and do them in a better way, and realize that a lot of the things that we think are somehow entertaining, like or that provide us freedom or some kind of individual capacity, that is at the cost of connecting with other people. It's the cost of, when I think about hitchhiking, I didn't have a car until about 2 years ago, and living on Salt Spring, that's a bit of a challenge. But I hitchhiked a lot, and I got to meet people, and I got to be in the presence of whoever was willing to pick me up, and we would have a conversation or we wouldn't.
It's really safe here to hitchhike, by the way.
I never had
places,
an issue.
Yeah.
The only issue is maybe you gotta hang out in the rain for a while, but just that idea that the poor person that has to hitchhike instead of take their own car. Yeah, that's true, and you're also missing out. Like, I even thought when we had the bus, that the bus was actually going to be a detriment to hitchhiking because it would prevent people from being willing to just give to each other. I really feel like there's an importance to come back to that gift economy and rewrite this idea that everything needs to be about some kind of fair exchange or some money.
I totally agree.
Exchange, and
Absolutely.
everything's a commodity. Okay, if we could just shift to being able to give what we have extra to somebody that needs it. That would be revolutionary. And I think that would actually have a big impact on climate change.
That was the permaculturing of the mind.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Needs a big shift.
Who on the island is good to talk to about gift exchange? And
That's a good question.
Erin, we're going to have you back.
I actually wrote a zine. It's available at my farm stand, but it's called Sacred Economics.
Good.
It's called Occupy Your Life, subtitle. Because I dove really deep, about 5 years ago, into the gift economy, and I'd love to talk more about that.
Let's do it. Okay, great.
Good lead.
Awesome. So basically, this is a grassroots momentum. Our governments are awesome in lots of ways, and they're doing some things that are really helping. But with the change that we really want to see, we need to make it. And so join these groups, make this type of group in your own hometown. And so before we sign off, there's an event that's coming up here on Salt Spring, and it is the Eco Living and Home Tour. Can you tell us just a little bit about that and when it is?
It will be Sunday, July the 28th. It runs from 10 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. We have 14 phenomenal houses. I mean, every type and style. Like we said, tiny house to larger. We've got totally off-grid. We've got, connected via solar. We've got water storage, everything you ever wanted to know. Solar dehydrator. It goes on and on and on. Fascinating houses. And so what you do is basically buy a ticket. Please go to our website, and we'll put these links up, right? The tickets are $25, 18 and under are free, and then we will give you the map just a day or two before the event. And then you get to plot your course and come and see as many houses as you can manage. And
it's a lot.
Which won't be all of them.
Yeah,
No.
like
No,
I've definitely
you're
done
right.
this tour and like not being able to do like half even because
No.
like they're so interesting and
Yes.
the homeowners are there.
Yes.
And so they are so excited to share their houses and they're like telling everyone about every detail. You know, if you have any questions, they're just awesome.
And
And
then
most of our houses are new. They haven't been on the tour before.
That's
So if
true.
you've been on the tour before, there's
Excellent.
going to definitely be lots of new places
I
to
don't
explore.
think there's a single repeat except one that was on 6 or so tours
First
ago.
tour, probably.
And this is
yeah.
the 5th tour. It's every second year. So this has been going 10 years or more. So the last tour, there sold maybe 450 tickets, and it's just great fun. So please come, buy a ticket, join. We're also going to have a raffle for a set of free tickets.
Well, hold on one
Oh,
second.
yeah.
That ticket, can they get that off your website as well?
There's a link on the website. There's also on our Facebook page. There's lots of
Yeah.
promo.
You can buy them online or Salt Spring Books.
If
Those
you're
two.
local, yeah.
If you're local and you'd rather have a paper ticket, but otherwise you can do Eventbrite. So, a raffle.
Yes.
So a set of free tickets, and come to the market this Saturday and sign your name on the raffle, and we will do the draw on the 21st at noon. So
Awesome.
good luck, and we will also be adding some raffle tickets at 3 other locations in town: Mattiata, Slegg, and Windsor.
Awesome. Well, thank you, ladies. Thank you so much for being on the show, and good luck with the home tour. And I know it's going to be great because I'm going to go there too. And
And it is, I should add, our major fundraiser. This
Okay.
tour helps us manage finances for the next 2 years. So
excellent.
it's really, really excellent.
a good support.
way. Yeah, good support for us, and great education and learning for the community.
Great. So if you want to see this organization thrive, just buy it for your family, buy it for your friends,
That's right. Tell
and go in
everybody
groups.
about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bring your
that's it.
kids. Your kids are free.
Your kids are free. Teach them the new wave of the future. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks so much for doing this, Guyana.
Yeah,
it's really great that
no
you're
worries.
inspiring
Very-
everybody with all these stories.
Yeah.
Aw,
Thank you so much. See you in the hood.
Okay. I hope this show inspires you to walk to the beat of your own drum. May the stories shared here today inspire us all to see a greater vision of what's possible for our collective future. Want to hear more of these shows? You can find this podcast, The Conscious Planet Network, on any podcast search engine, including iTunes or Podbean. Or listen live on your computer every Friday morning at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time by Googling islandsradio.com. You can find out more about me, Guyana, at GuyanaSophia.com. That's spelt GaianaSophia.com. If you know of a special someone who would love this program, then be sure to send it along to them. Thanks for listening to the Conscious Planet Network, broadcasting to you from the Gulf Island Community Radio. See you next time.